Okay, we are ready to have the public hearing for the Scenic Road bylaw for 88 Merriam Street. And this is the bylaw that requires that we sign off on an alteration to a stone wall on a right-of-way on a scenic road. And the issue with this this kind of hearing is that we have to take into consideration the historic character of the walls in town and be very deliberative about what comes down, what gets replaced, what gets opened, what gets moved. If we think that what's being proposed is not reasonable, then we can deny the application under certain circumstances. So, that having been said, we actually, the planning board actually some time ago, and I think it's in everybody's packet somewhere, looked at an application for an opening in this in the stone wall for this lot. And is it in our packets in here?
Yes, it is.
So we've already signed off on this.
It's in this.
Oh, it's in that one. Are you aware that we'd actually already had a hearing on this?
You have actually, I think you approved a whole project previously.
Yeah, we did. With an opening of the stone wall.
Right.
And the opening is not that we approved is not where you're suggesting it.
That's correct. We had discussions with Joe lately about this during the site walk. That was one of the very first things that we discussed. And then we met with the DPW as well to discuss where the opening should go. And I think Dave was privy to those conversations as well.
Yeah.
We thought as a team that there was an existing opening for the pedestrian access way there, and that the least amount of disturbance from our perspective would be to use that existing opening and widen it just to the extent that we needed to make room for the proposed 11-foot wide driveway.
Well, when we talked about this project last time, I expressed some concern about the town's interest in the sidewalk, and my concern that someone who bought the property could just, on their own, take the sidewalk out and discontinue it across the front of the property because part of the public sidewalk goes onto this property. And I suggested the possibility of an easement. That was greeted with, I got a negative response to that. So my question is, because the opening of this in the stone wall seems to be related, at least in the initial approval, to the sidewalk configuration for some reason. But is there some way that we could come to an agreement to assure that the public sidewalk stays open and doesn't get removed by a property owner that comes in and decides he doesn't want it on his property? For example, if we put a condition in the planning board's decision to the effect that sidewalk has to remain, that doesn't have the weight of an easement, but we could say it has to remain until, but that the town would guarantee that it would be relocated if that power pole were ever relocated, that the sidewalk is trying to get around.
We also have to indemnify any owner of injuries
Of
on that
injuries,
property.
we can do that.
That would have to be.
What you're proposing sounds reasonable. What I'm planning on doing is working with the town engineer to see if we can get that guide wire, that cable, moved, and then I would actually straighten out the sidewalk itself at my expense.
Well, that would be fine. I just don't want it to one day wake up and suddenly there's no sidewalk.
Oh, no, I understand
Okay, that's fair enough. So we could put that in our decision, that either the guy wire gets moved and the sidewalk relocated by the applicant, or that it would be relocated at a later time should the guy wire ever be moved, but that in the interim, the demolition of the sidewalk is one of the conditions that would be allowed. Okay.
And we have to put, if we do it that way, we have to put that indemnity into it, however it has to be done legally.
So,
I don't know whether the Board of Selectmen have to agree or what.
yeah, I'll find out what the best way to deal with that is.
Right.
Okay. In terms of the alternative locations for this, because this has already been, we already signed off on this, so we have to revise our initial decision. Does it seem reasonable to revise our initial decision to relocate the driveway entrance in the existing opening?
Because the original cut would have been.
Well, so you're about to
entirely
build.
new hole in the stone wall.
Completely new hole.
About to build.
Um,
I'm sorry.
This is the original.
Am I right?
Yeah.
This lot hasn't been built on.
It's not,
That's
Right,
existing.
right. And so the original plan we approved back in 2005 had this far more angled in, right?
Well, I think, yeah, the open doors over the left.
The opening door was here, and then it was more angling in.
Actually,
Was it?
I think it's right,
It's just to the left of the current opening.
I think it's right.
And I'm just trying to look at different.
It's okay, yeah, and also, actually, it's right where that pole is, where the guy wire is.
Yeah, it's right where the pole is.
Yeah.
So if we said you gotta keep this, then the pole would have to move.
Oh, that wouldn't be a problem at all.
I remember going and doing a sidewalk on this back
Also-
in the early days of dinosaurs.
And, you know, also, this is a 24-foot, this is a 24-foot opening here, and they're proposing an 11-foot opening. Am I correct on that?
Driveway is 11 feet wide. and then-
Okay.
Sorry, you're gonna have to study your
6
code.
feet more.
For a total of 17.
So it's less of an opening
It is less of an opening, you're correct.
than what is being proposed.
And
It's
there's a
hard to
total
bring
of-
trucks in.
And it would only be, because we're utilizing the existing opening, there would only be 8.5 linear feet of stone wall removed, as opposed to 24 feet. We're also, if we keep this location, we will not disturb any of the trees within the right, which was seen as a benefit as well.
I mean, that's what I'm wondering, actually. You know,
know.
we went
We
over,
must
and
have
we
been
talked
drinking.
about this. You know, we walked this, we talked about it.
The only thing I can think is that he just didn't want to impact the opening for the sidewalk. Maybe the applicant didn't want people walking
Yeah,
up.
that's gotta be,
Yeah.
you know something, you're right about that. That's exactly what it was.
Maybe the applicant didn't want people walking up.
No, he's right. The reason why we did this was because this is the access to the sidewalk
Right.
from Sunset.
Right.
And so we didn't want to change that access.
Right, that's exactly right.
what
It was a little path there, yeah.
Right, and that's there, but maybe the applicant didn't want to share that,
Right.
like this applicant does, you know?
Maybe we were concerned that if it was shared, somebody could get mowed down.
Well, I think the other thing is sometimes, remember, with that when we were dealing with somebody over on Boston Post Road, when you have accesses down people's driveways, people walking sometimes feel like, oh, I don't want to go in the driveway. They feel off put about doing that. Whereas if you have a separate entrance for a trail, people will definitely go there.
There is a separate entrance,
There's two other
just
entrances.
up the road a
You
little
can
bit.
see.
Yeah, we're just reconstructing right about it. Yeah, why we, you know.
Because it is more disruption to the trees and the stone walls by where the board had it.
Well, I think it's a good idea to go to the updated plan.
Yeah.
Uh,
Might be missing
Do
something,
you
but I
entertain a
think that
motion?
that's exactly what it is.
I think the other benefit was that there's a better alignment with Sunset across the way.
Yes.
And you'd have these offsetting
Yes.
intersections if you moved it back further, which is not ideal in terms of traffic.
Yeah, they showed me that when we first went out, and it was just weird. Yeah. We put them here, and I just prefer why we were over there.
So I guess I would like to motion that we move to
Accept the change?
accept the change of the new plan for 88 Merriam Road, changing from the old 2005 plan to the stone wall. For the alteration of the stone wall. With the aforementioned conditions regarding the solution for the existing walkway, public walkway.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
All right, that's the end of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
I think you're thinking creatively.
We tried. I tried.